Welcome to the Xi Omega Chapter's Centennial Podcast Series, Xi Omega, A Century of Sisterhood and Service. I am Raven L. Hill, President of Xi Omega Chapter, the first and largest graduate chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in Washington, D.C. For 100 years, Xi Omega has led with exceptional sisterhood and exemplary service. 2 Alpha Kappa Alpha founders were among the 20 visionaries who chartered our chapter in 1923. Through the years, Xi Omega has been home to several AKA founders, 3 AKA international presidents, and 6 North Atlantic regional directors. From our original 20 charter members to now almost 700 members, we are committed to continuing our legacy of sisterhood, scholarship, and service, in line with our mission to meet the needs of a dynamic and ever-changing world. Join us as we travel through the decades, exploring Xi Omega's growth and service legacy in our nation's capital and the global community. Each episode will showcase Xi Omega's contributions through narration, conversations, and interviews with our illustrious chapter members against the backdrop of the culture, politics, and music that encompass the African American experience of those times. So we ask that you sit back, relax, and enjoy as we bring you Xi Omega, A Century of Sisterhood and Service.
Welcome to the 1940s. The United States is at war. Pearl Harbor, the U.S. naval base in Honolulu, Hawaii, is attacked on December 7th, 1941, and President Franklin Delano Roosevelt declares war on the Japanese Empire. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, eligible Americans were either drafted or volunteered to serve in the armed forces. Many supported the war effort by participating in civil defense activities and abiding by the mandatory rationing of various food items and gasoline. National Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated President and Xi Omega member Dr. Dorothy Farabee encouraged sorority members to enroll in the civil defense programs. AKA's theme became War Readiness and All for Defense and Defense for All. Negro service members distinguished themselves in many ways. General Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. was born in Washington, D.C., and graduated from West Point Academy. As a lieutenant colonel, he was named commander of the 1st All-Negro Air Unit, the 99th Pursuit Squadron, joining with the 332nd Fighter Group, the Tuskegee Airmen, also known as the Red Tails. This elite but segregated pilot corps dispelled the notion that Negroes could not fly aircraft. The Tuskegee Airmen Red Tails flew many bomber escort missions during World War II, earning over 150 distinguished Flying Cross medals and many other awards for service to their country. Washington, D.C. was one of the cities that benefited from the Great Migration as Negroes moved north and west to find opportunities that were not available to them in the South. Even though Washington, D.C. in the 1940s was a segregated Southern town, segments of the Negro community were able to flourish. Businesses along the U Street corridor were owned by and catered to the Negro middle class that moved into such neighborhoods as Strivers Row, LeDroit Park, and U Street, known as the Negro Cultural Center of Washington, D.C. Movie theaters, restaurants, dance halls, and hotels flourished as residents flocked to the area, along with well-known entertainers like Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, and Charlie Parker. Locals gathered at area entertainment establishments to dance the jitterbug and boogie-woogie, forgetting, at least for a while, the stresses of daily life.
When I first saw the lady in a pink and green, she asked me, "What do you wanna be?" Well, I wanna be an AKA, 'cause Alpha Kappa Alpha is the only way.
In spite of the turmoil in the world, war, rationings, segregation, Xi Omega Chapter moved forward with purpose and commitment to the Washington community. In commemoration of the 74th anniversary of the founding of Howard University, National President and Xi Omega member Dr. Dorothy Farabee, on behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, presented to Howard University the cherry table on which General Oliver Howard signed the charter establishing the university. The table had been refinished and reconditioned by Xi Omega Chapter. As her national AKA presidency came to an end, Xi Omega member Dr. Dorothy Farabee remained in Washington, always dedicated to providing service. Today, her great-niece, Janice Farabee, is a member of Xi Omega Chapter. We talked with Janice about the activities Dr. Farabee engaged in after her tenure as national president of Alpha Kappa Alpha.
She played an integral part. This was after she had left her position as the international president, an integral role in integrating the U.S. Navy's women's branch, known as the Waves. After the war, she succeeded Mary McLeod Bethune, 1949 to 1953, as the president, where she continued to fight for integration.
Xi Omega member Janice Farabee is the great-niece of Xi Omega member and former national president Dr. Dorothy Farabee. Xi Omega Chapter was privileged to have as a member internationally acclaimed artist Lois Mailou Jones. She was a professor at Howard University and a charter member of the Artists Guild of Washington. Lois Mailou Jones contributed her services to the war effort through donations of her poster designs and watercolor paintings. So prolific and popular an artist during the 1940s, she exhibited her work at universities throughout the country, as well as major galleries around the United States. In 1948, Xi Omega Chapter hosted Alpha Kappa Alpha's national conference in Washington, D.C., celebrating the sorority's 40th year. The following year, former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, a great friend to Alpha Kappa Alpha demonstrated through her support of civil rights, was inducted as an honorary member of the sorority. Honorary membership is bestowed upon distinguished women whose works and contributions parallel Alpha Kappa Alpha's ideals of service and achievement. Over the past 100 years, 38 women served as president of Xi Omega Chapter. During the 1940s, these 5 women helped to build Xi Omega. Gladys T. Peterson served 1940 to 1941 as the 11th chapter president. She graduated from the Howard University Law School in 1922, a time when only a minuscule number of women attended law school, and upon graduation were not hired as lawyers. Gladys Peterson spent her career in education. She was honored by the Board of Education of the Washington Public Schools when she was promoted to principal of Brown Junior High School in Northeast Washington. Thelma J. Bryant was the 12th Xi Omega president, serving 1942 through 1944. She was an activist, participating in nonviolent demonstrations in support of the community's needs. Alma R. Hooks served 1945 to 1946 as the 13th president of Xi Omega. The war ended and Negro soldiers came home to face discrimination in housing and jobs. Xi Omega increased efforts to secure decent living conditions for its community. Muriel M. Alexander was the 14th chapter president from 1947 through 1948. Xi Omega hosted the sorority's national conference in 1948, celebrating 40 years of Alpha Kappa Alpha progress. At the conference, AKAs demanded action toward the elimination of segregation in the U.S. military. Sophie E. Fowler served 1949 to 1950 as the 15th chapter president. She was one of just 6 women in the history of Xi Omega to serve as North Atlantic Regional Director, an elected position, responsible for helping chapter presidents organize the structure and operations of chapters from Washington, D.C. to Maine. Membership in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is a lifelong experience. In 2023, Xi Omega has women ranging in age from 22 to 105 years old. One of the active seniors is Dr. Grace Holloman Davis. She is 99 years old and has been an active member of the sorority with continuous service to her community since 1940. We honor her as a diamond soror, meaning she has been a member of the sisterhood for at least 75 years. Dr. Davis has been an AKA member for 83 years. We talked with her about her life as an AKA.
It's been a big part of my social life. I have maintained contacts and met people, enjoyed the activities. Both my chapters, but of course the graduate chapter where I've spent all this time. Do your best to maintain your contacts.
Xi Omega member Dr. Grace Davis, at 99 years old, has been a member of AKA for 83 years. A century of sisterhood and service. The decade of the 40s is brought to you by Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Xi Omega Chapter. Executive producer, Ayana Roche. Director of Research, Bonnie Jones-Moon. Content producer, Cheryl McGill. Podcast editorial board, Nadine Eads, Lavdino Orr, Etta Williams. Copy editors, Sharon Anderson, Josephine Baker, Danielle Barrett. Podcast theme by Paul Bailey with the Howard University Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Fred Irby III. Technical production, Ashley Donald. I'm Diane Johnson.
This is Xi Omega President Raven L. Hill again to thank you for listening to this month's episode of the Xi Omega Centennial Podcast, A Century of Sisterhood and Service. We hope you found it informative as well as entertaining, and that you will recommend it to your family and friends. We have dedicated a great deal of time to ensure that our centennial events are thought-provoking and interesting, and we hope you will have an opportunity to see some of the activities we have planned. To stay up to date with our calendar of events, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and online at akaxo.org. Don't forget to join us for next month's podcast episode on the 23rd as we continue our centennial journey from 1923 to 2023.